People say I'm toxic, and honestly, I don't care.
Hello and good morning. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. You could be watching this on a playback, but at the moment we are live and I am joined by Matchroom CEO, Mr. Fresh Prada wearing freshly shaved head. I don't know, it looks like it's growing back. But Frank Smith, welcome. How you doing?
I'm good. It is growing back a little bit. I need to go and get it chopped back off again, but all is well. How are you?
All right, yeah, all the better for seeing you. I was just saying off camera how you're always punctual. One of the things that really grips me, Frank, is tardiness. And that's one thing that I'd say that you haven't got. You are always punctual. So thank you very much for that.
I don't like people being late.
The businessman that you are.
I agree with you. I agree 100%.
We're going to get straight into it, Frank, because I know one thing that is precious, and that is our time. I'm going to go back because I haven't spoke to you since Anthony Joshua versus Daniel Dubois. Obviously, the fight ended in a devastating fashion, I think would be the correct word for it, where it just looked like Anthony was caught off guard straight away and just couldn't make it back into the fight. Obviously, we've had a couple of weeks off and there's been several other things going on since, but speaking to Anthony Joshua after the fight, it's just like an update for the fans. We're hearing rematch. We know it's the IBF. You know that they're very almost police-like with their regiments. It's like you can't fight someone off a loss. You better defend it against who we tell you that you're going to defend it against. Otherwise, we're going to take the belt off you. We're seeing that now with potentially Artur Beterbiev, Opetaia. Talk to us about that position with that belt and Anthony Joshua and Daniel Dubois.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of discussions ongoing. You know, Anthony Joshua, as always, is going to make the decision as to what he wants to do next. He's the boss. We work for him, obviously. And, you know, our job is to be there, support him and help him make those decisions. But he's going to be the one who makes those choices. I think we will see soon what the decision is, very, very soon. You know, there's obviously the Daniel Dubois option and the rematch. There's the option of waiting to see what happens with that Usyk Fury rematch in December as well. You know, Fury is a fight that's been spoken about for many, many years, as we all know. I think there's not a bad decision in all this. So we'll see what choice he makes and what he believes is best. You know, but that's the process that's ongoing at the minute. Like I say, it's not something to be rushed. Sorry that my camera keeps moving. I'm just trying to get it set up in the right place. It's not something that needs to be rushed. You know, and as always, as he's always shown throughout his career, he just wants the biggest and best fights. You know, he's shown that time and time again. He's never shied away from opportunities. He's never shied away from challenges, whether that be mandatories, whatever it is. And I think, you know, we have to sort of remember that in everything he's done. You know, I see so many people saying Nancy Joshua should retire. And I just think it's great. I saw Johnny Nelson say it yesterday. And look, I like Johnny Nelson.
Quite a few people have said it.
Yeah, and I think, like, you know, this is a guy who's changed the face of British boxing, especially, and boxing as a whole. You know, he's done amazing things for the sport. I've said it a few times. He's never going to get the respect, I don't think, until 5, 10, 15 years down the line for what he's done. But it's a crazy sport where you test yourself against the best and you lose and people go, he's finished. I mean, and again, look, it's not just Anthony Joshua. Daniel Dubois, they said it about when he got beat by Joe Joyce. He was finished and should retire back then. You know, and it's like, what are we in the sport for if it's not about just seeing the best fights? Win, lose or draw. Like, what are we all doing? You know, we're in the wrong business otherwise. So, you know, I think let's see how things play out. It's a crazy business. It's a crazy sport. Everyone's got an opinion. But yeah, hopefully some news soon on that.
Okay, we'll keep our ears to the ground for the news soon. But Frank, will the IBF have a say in it? Because like I said, they're extremely strict. I mean, like you said, Anthony Joshua can make the decisions. Daniel Dubois can make the decisions. But at the end of the day, it's a governing body for the belt that may provide like a little bump in the road. It may not be as straightforward.
Yeah, look, ultimately the IBF have a decision with their belt every time as to what they want to do and what they'll decide. And that will be for them to choose. I don't know. Let's see. Let's see. Hopefully, it's a massive fight. It's a massive rematch if it happens. I think rules are great in sport. Obviously, rules are great with governing bodies, but at the same time, there has to be some sense, and sense sometimes has to prevail with these things. So hopefully, there's a balance. If that's the fight that is picked next.
Based on the Riyadh season, obviously it was the first one that we had in the UK. Feedback from His Excellency, the General Entertainment Authority. Potentially, could that rematch be in the UK? I know I've heard a date of the 22nd of February loosely put out there, but is there a potential that could be in the UK? And you know me, I'm just trying to cheat and book a hotel early. That's all. Selfish reason. Sorry.
Look, I think that obviously Riyadh season seller, the GEA will decide what makes the best commercial sense with these events, and what they want to do. They're doing great things for the sport wherever it ends up. If that fight happens, it's a great fight. So I'm just let's see how things play out. But early days still.
Yeah, early days. Well, we're going to continue back to the Riyadh season because that is, when you look at elite fighters in the sport, Riyadh season is the elite of boxing now. Let's just face it. That is, the red carpet of boxing. We've got to go back to Artur Beterbiev versus Dmitry Bivol. Now, I watched the fight. I did a live watch along, and I thought that Bivol edged it because of the combination of his punches, the way that he was potentially scoring, maybe for the judges to see. Even though I'm a massive Artur Beterbiev fan and I wanted him to win. What's the state of play with that? Because we've all got opinions. The judges did what they did. They made the decision. Outrageous, however you want to put it. But Artur is now undisputed. So, yes, it's a bit early in the day, but what can we see happening with that? Because I'm hearing about petitions to the judges. I mean, are we even getting to the point where we're becoming a complain and blame society rather than just taking it on the chin and saying, you know what, let's get a rematch. I'll prove you wrong.
Yeah, look, I don't think, as you saw with Dmitry Bivol comments, he is so respectful. He said, look, I could have done more. I could have done more.
Yep.
I think, look, it was a close fight. I believe Dmitry Bivol won. And I think a lot of people at ringside believe Dmitry Bivol won. Turkey Al-Sheikh thought he won by 2 rounds. I think the biggest issue was really that Pavel Cardini scorecard. That's the reality of it. Like, how do you give Dmitry Bivol just 4 rounds in that fight? If that fight would have been the mad thing is not one of the judges scored it to Dmitry Bivol, not one judge. But I think that everyone at ringside thought Dmitry Bivol had won. Again, granted, close fight, and I think if it was a point, throughout, it would have been people couldn't really have argued. That's the reality of it. But I think when you look at that scorecard of 116, 112, you realise something's got to change with the sport, or at least there has to be some kind of procedure you go through to say, how did you score it like that? Because no one else scored it anywhere near that. The majority scored it maybe a round or two to Dmitry Bivol. Again, if it's a round, you could argue either way,
Yeah.
different styles of fighting, different, I get that. So again, that's not really the argument. And Dmitry Bivol, as I say, he's respectful. He just wants his opportunity at a rematch. I believe he deserves a rematch. I believe it was a great fight. And I think it's a fight we'll see again. Obviously with Turkey Al-Sheikh saying he thought Bivol won, I think it's a fight he wants to see again as well. But, I don't think there would have been that uproar as much if it wasn't for that scorecard. I have to be completely honest with you. And I think that's where the attention should be focused. Is right, explain how you scored the fight like that. And if you come up with a justifiable explanation of round by round, and people go, okay, fair enough, I can see it. But at the minute, what changes in the sport? This is people's livelihoods, this is people's lifestyles. They live their whole life to get to this point. And you can change a person's life, you can ruin a person's life, really, something they've worked their whole life for, by someone sitting there. And, whether it's incompetence, whatever it is, it's not good enough. So something needs to change, and something in the sport needs to change. So I think it's about how that's approached moving forward. Pavel Cardini should be asked to sit in a room with the relevant bodies and explain why he did it.
I agree.
If you can come up with a justifiable explanation, sure. If not, it's like, what are we doing? How is the sport ever going to improve? Look, I hope we get to see the rematch, because I think Dimitri Bivol deserves his opportunity to become undisputed. So I'm hopeful we get to see that.
Yeah, just once again, we are in the, I don't know, kind of like in the mid-air with it because of, yet again, the IBF. So potentially, if there is a rematch, just like Fury Usyk, it won't be for the undisputed. So like I said, you're talking about these opportunities to win the fight fair and square in the first place, that now it has a knock-on effect because maybe the IBF belt may be drawn out of it.
Yeah, I think I'd be hopeful that the IBF belt will stay in there. Obviously, you have to understand as well with the heavyweight division, that was a situation that had dragged on for 18 months, 20, with Filip Hrgovic being the IBF mandatory prior to the Daniel Dubois fight. So that wasn't just a one fight and then we'll deal with it. I'd hope in this situation, the IBF belt would be able to be on the line.
Awesome. Let me go into the chat, Frank, because I've got to thank my lovely subscribers for listening in this morning. So good morning to all of you. Mark Perris was straight off the mark at 9:22 a.m. this morning. Ask him about the Japan tournament, given Conway Brit title purse bid win.
Yeah, I mean, currently we've got a situation with the Japanese tournament we're working through at the minute.
Okay.
The focus right now is to keep the fighters active. Obviously, that's our job to do. So Kieran Conway, hopefully on November 30th, we're just waiting for Brad Pauls to confirm, we'll challenge for that British title, and that will be added to the Birmingham card. We're also looking at opportunities for Aaron McKenna as well. Currently, been speaking to Mick Hennessy. So, news soon on the plans for those guys.
Interesting. Right, Jabsy Jabs is one of them with sense of humour. Morning all. Where's Frank Warren's tea, Frank?
It's on its way. It's on its way. The kettle's taking a while to boil, but it'll be there very soon.
Right, Chris Welsh is saying IBF could allow an exemption similar to Bivol rematch with Beterbiev, and they let Opetaia defend belt versus Massey when Massey wasn't a mandatory.
Yeah, like I say, I think the IBF situation very different in this situation.
All right, we're going to keep them crossed for that. Last Riyadh show was the most enjoyable yet, and I've got to echo that. The whole week, Frank, absolutely everything about that show was superb. Eyes to the screen, from grand arrivals until the fight night, it was full of drama, entertainment, whether it was the fighters, whether it was the promoters, whatever it was, we were all glued to the screen. And we're gonna talk about that. So last week then, obviously leading up towards the Beterbiev Bivol fight, there's all sorts of stuff that's been going on the internet. And one thing I will say, Frank, you kept a very low profile out there in Saudi last week. Was you even there?
I was there. I stayed out. I'm keeping out of trouble. I've decided I've said enough over the last few years, so I'm going to let the big boys handle the young guns.
It's never enough. I'm going to ask about one thing though, and it's something that I didn't know, and I think it's something that's been spoken about, and this is just interest. When you have the co-promotional team working together, and your fighters do come up with it, for the face-offs. Talk to me about the tradition of having, because let's put it this way, there's going to be two promoters on stage. I understand that because fighters from each stable, but we've had a bit of a hoo-ha. Allegedly, it's been asked for in writing. Say, for example, in fact, boxer fighters that Benn Shalom wanted to make sure that he was in the pictures with his fighters, representing his fighters. Something on the stage with him and Frank. I still haven't seen it. I've tried to watch it back, but I can't see what happened. Just your feedback and thoughts on that. And even though it's sort of taking a little bit of limelight away from the fighters, listen, Frank, I'm not arguing with it because it was entertaining.
Yeah, look, it's all entertaining. It's part of boxing. It's been going on for many, many years. Whoever it's about, this person, that person. Look, Frank is obviously the promoter of the show. Queensbury sort of leading on the show as they have done with the Riyadh season events. I see a lot of this stuff back and forth of I've got to stand in the middle, this, that, the other, and then on the other hand, it's not about me. It's about the fighters. It's It's all about the fighters, blah, 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 blah. And there's a real victim mentality there right now, right? I'm just being honest with you.
I like your honesty.
Let's go back to December of
Yeah.
2023.
Okay.
You've got two people in Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren who haven't spoken to each other ever.
Yeah.
Who, for the last 10 and 15 years, have basically just been going back and forwards, saying things about each other, building up a hate, building up a narrative, right? Whether it's real, whether it's not, whatever you want to call it, there's still something's been built up over time, just naturally as anything would. When sort of Benn comes in now, he goes, the way I've been treated. I mean, can you imagine us back in December of 2023, or when the press conference, November 2023, doing a deal with Queensberry, coming together and putting everything behind us and going, right, let's do this for the good of boxing. If there was ever anyone who's going to have problems with each other, it was the people who for 15 years have been back and forth with a lot of dislike. Let's be completely open and transparent. But the reality is, we went, do you know what? Let's work together. Let's do the right thing by boxing. Again, money, of course.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and lie. We are a business and we want to make money and we want our fighters to make the most amount of money. But let's all come together. And the relationship we built just in 11 months is quite amazing, like how times have changed. And even then we were respectful to each other. We made it easy and we just worked together. It was sensible. There was no ego there. And you think amongst the characters involved of those group, amongst us all, amongst the things I've said about Frank Warren, he said about me. But actually it was like, let's just do good business, right? So if there was ever anyone who was going to have a problem with each other, we were the people.
It would have been them pair.
Yeah. And Benn now comes in and he goes, well, them two joining up together. Wait a minute, we've gone through that process of coming together and going, actually, let's just do good business. And actually, they're quite easy to deal with. We're quite easy to deal with. So you can sit there now and go, I'm the victim in all this. But actually, look at yourself, and I've been in boxing since I was 16 years old, right? I'm 32. I know what it's like to be young in boxing, but you get respect if you are respectful to people, if you deal with people in the right way. And I'm not going to go on about Ben, this, that, the other. Like I've done that. I've been there. You know my opinion. Yeah. But I think there's something in the way they operate that resoundingly in boxing people don't like. It's not just us. It's not just Queensberry. Boxers have sort of alienated themselves and the individuals involved from the rest of the sport. And I think if you speak to a lot of people about that, that would be the majority view. I'm sure there's people who could say things about me, don't like this. You're never going to be friends with everyone. That's the reality of it. We're not always going to get on with each other. Everyone's not always going to align in their vision or mindset. But I do feel that he's really playing the card of I'm the victim here. But then you have to understand the way things are operated in the background and the way he operates in the background. And the majority of people go, do you know what? We're not going to put up with it. And I get that. So all fun. Boxing has always had these back and forths. And I'm sure it will continue, whether it's between us, them, him, her, whoever it is, there's always going to be someone at war or whatever you want to call it.
One of the things that, and I'm going to use a famous word that Simon Jordan uses a lot, and it's observations. Obviously, I'm sat at home, I'm miles away from you guys. But just watching it, even when I have been close up, even when I have been at the press conferences, I can speak on Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren. And I think with Eddie Hearn, he is very respectful of an elder. He seems to be a bit old school in his approach. So I get it. They had their online backwards and forwards and, clickbait across the interviewing channels. And I get that. But now that they've come together and His Excellency said, listen, lads, forget about all of that rubbish. We're going to start to make some fights and we're going to make some money. But one thing I will notice about Eddie is he's got respect for Frank. It's sort of like he sees Frank like a dad. So he'll step back. And I've seen Frank, take that center stage, and I haven't seen Eddie try and push him out the way. He's there, but he sort of sidesteps and lets Frank do his thing. There's almost that respect for your elders. And I don't mean that in a I'm not trying to call Frank an old fogey or anything like that, but there's that respect there.
Yeah, 100%, for sure. And you have to respect also what Frank has done for the sport of boxing. You know, he's 70, I think 73 years old, 74, Hall of Fame promoter. You know, and he's always been, in the last 40 years, I think he's been in the business. So of course you have to have that respect. You know, and again, we haven't always aligned in or agreed in the past. But I think where we are now is good for the sport of boxing, and long may it continue.
Yeah, long may it continue. Well, we can go down the card, obviously. And I just want your opinion. You was there ringside. Can you talk to me about the Liam Cameron and Benn Whitaker fight and your thoughts on that? And, you know, even with the lead up there, Eddie Hearn was like, yeah, I'll see you soon. He was posting pictures. I know Eddie Hearn likes to load the bullets and then somebody else will fire the gun. Frank Warren will come straight up to you with the gun and fire. There's a difference between them. But even all of that and the whole lead up, and then we have such a bizarre end to the fight. But you were there. Talk to us, Frank.
Yeah, it was mad ending. You know, look, I like both Benn Whitaker and Liam Cameron. I think, you know, Liam Cameron's a lovely guy, been through hard times. I think Benn Whitaker has his persona that you see, but he's also a very nice guy as well. You know, there's obviously all the talk around did he, a lot of people saying, did he quit? And no, but the reality is the only person who can actually tell you ever is him. Like, it's the only person who can ever answer that question. So everyone can have a view on it, but he's the only person who can categorically tell you. I think the key for me, I think it was terrible matchmaking, honestly.
Do you?
Because I don't think, you know, you look at Benn's career up until now, and this isn't Benn's fault, by the way.
Yeah, all right, I'm
But
listening.
you can't put him in with the type of people they've been putting him in with, that he learns nothing from, because he does. Don't get me wrong, it's worked because he's built a profile off the back of it, but he's not really learnt much from the fights he's had because, you know, the people they're bringing in aren't up to his quality. That's just the reality of it, you know. And I think Liam Cameron was terrible matchmaking because it was no win. You know, they tried to use off the back of the Lyndon Arthur fight, but Lyndon doesn't have the profile that Benn does. So the casual audience that follow Benn don't really know who Lyndon Arthur is. That's just the reality of it. You know, people were. So Liam has come off the back of a real tough time that he's been very open about. He's not hid away from. So if Benn beat him, everyone would have just played onto that and gone, do you know what? Of course he should have beat him. Look at what he's been through, this guy. And if Benn lost or what happened and he drew and, you know, didn't look great, everyone's like, this guy's useless. You know, so I don't think, and by the way, neither of those guys' faults, you know, but I don't think he's been matched very well. I don't think he's been given the opportunity to improve because of the people they've been putting him in with, you know. And then when they put him in with Liam's a great fighter, and, you know, prior to all of his troubles, you know, he was on a great run. So yeah, it's interesting. It's another storyline, isn't it? But the natural thing is to make that rematch. It's a huge rematch. You know, when it comes around, obviously Liam's now signed with Queensbury.
Straight away.
Yeah, but, you know, he deserves it. He deserves it because he went in there and he upset the odds, didn't he? Even though he didn't get the win because of the situation. I believe the fight was favouring him as it was going along. But Benn will now want to come back and prove himself, you know, so that's got to be the natural fight for the both of them next, you know, subject to when Benn's fit and ready, I guess.
You know, when you talk about matchmaking, say, for example, Benn was your fighter, and you, like you said, you look at the caliber of fighters that he's fought so far in his professional career. Who would you probably matched him up with on that card if it wasn't Liam Cameron, just from a matchroom's perspective?
Look, I'll be honest with you. I've always open about the boxing aspect of our business. I run the commercial element of the business. I run the day-to-day operations. I'm not a matchmaker. We got a lot of great people who do that. You know,
Tom Dallas.
Yeah, Tom Dallas, Kevin Rooney. You know, Eddie gets very involved as well himself. He loves the sport of boxing. So, but my thing is not so much the matchmaking for the Liam Cameron fight. It's you can't jump from where he was.
All right.
You know, and the other thing you got to remember with Benn and all of these GB guys, they're boxing at the highest level of the sport. And understandably amateur, but they're boxing amazing fighters. And then when he turns pro, he's been put in with people who just shouldn't be in the ring with him. Is the
So in
reality.
reverse, it's like he's gone backwards,
Yeah,
in other
yeah,
words. All
but
right.
it's not his fault. And the truth is, and this happens a lot, is, you know, Boxer paid him a lot of money to sign him. Boxer are paying him a lot of money, which then they then don't want to invest in the opponents because they haven't got enough money in terms of, because we're all in a business, right? That's, you know, where they then don't have the money to put the types of opponents that are needed in the ring with him. Again, so it's not necessarily just to match him for that fight. It's how he ended up from where he was to there.
So rather a progression. Fair enough. That makes sense. But, you know, I'd love to see the rematch as well. I did say that Liam is coming to win. I knew that because I watched his fight with Lyndon Arthur and I saw that he's somebody that's prepared to stay in there no matter what. So, yeah, strange ending, but we move. I've got to ask about, obviously, because Fabio Wardley was, you know, on a fight-by-fight basis with yourself and then went in with Fraser Clarke. The first time round, Fraser was written off. It was almost like what happened in this fight, people expected to happen in fight number one. Fraser proved them wrong. We had one of the best British fights that we've seen in a long time. And then here we go, just like that, Frank, round number 13.
Yeah, look, that is what happens in heavyweight boxing. You know, anything can happen. And that's what we've seen over the last few months, the last few years. When these guys get in with each other, anything can happen. You know, and look, fair play to Fabio, great win for him. First fight, first time round was amazing, and a great finish from him. You know, Fraser Clarke, I love Fraser Clarke as well. Like both those guys, we've had a great relationship with Fabio over the years. Fraser obviously worked on our security when I first started at Matchroom, like 10, 12, 13 years ago. So we've really been through a journey with him as well, although not in his career. So yeah, look, that's what happens in heavyweight boxing. Like I say, you know, heavyweight boxing, when the best fight, anything can happen. That's why we love to watch it. And what a finish. And just glad that Fraser's healthy. You know, I know he had surgery out there, but he got the all clear, I believe, in terms of everything's safe, got the surgery done very quickly, you know, so that's the paramount, is that the fighters are safe. So, you know, the most important part of the sport is that fighters come out safe.
I know that they say no regrets, Frank, but do you regret not keeping Fabio as one of your fighters because of the potential? Because let's face it, he's dangerous. I mean, you can't really say that he isn't. He's a dangerous fighter.
Yeah, look, again, like every time I see Fabio, we always have a laugh and a joke about things. You know, we've had a great relationship. I think we've had been on a great sort of ride together. You know, fighters at the same time have to do what's best for them. So it doesn't always mean, you know, he got very well paid for that first Fraser Clarke fight, and fair play to him, you know. And he's doing very well now. And he's set himself up in a position to be involved in the big fights now. You know, it's a great time for heavyweight boxing, and he's in and around that mix now, undoubtedly. So, you know, you can look back on so many things and go, could we have done this differently? Could we have held this, you know, signed this person for longer? But I'm just happy he's doing well. You know, he's a nice guy. There's not everyone in the sport is a nice guy, you know, not everyone, but he's a nice guy. He deserves all the success. So, you know, happy for him.
I've got to go on to, obviously, there's Opetaia once again puts on it's just a clinical breakdown. Honestly, I think, you know, when you watch fights, Frank, when you watch a Opetaia fight, it's almost like you have to look away from the screen because he literally just pummels his opponents to pieces. And listen, Jack Massey was in the fight. I think you would have had to dragged him out the ring on a stretcher, literally. But what a clinical breakdown.
Yeah, look, Jack Massey's a tough man. We saw it, you know, he got written off when he was fighting Joseph Parker a few years back now. And then you see what Joseph Parker's gone on to do. And that was he gave him a real fight. You know, Jack Massey's a tough man. And he went in there, he wasn't giving up. You know, obviously Joe Gallagher made the right decision pulling him out from that fight, because Jack never would have pulled himself out of that fight. Never would have quit in there. You know, but Joe Opetaia, special fighter. You know, he's the aim for him now is those unifications. Obviously, the IBF have ordered a mandatory for him, which one of those things. But
Okay.
I think, you know, we'll get one of those unifications. Obviously, you've got Chris Billam-Smith, in that fight with Zerdo later in November. That's the natural fight there. So let's see how that goes. But Joe Opetaia is on a great streak, and he's doing big things in the sport, and I'm sure it will continue.
Chris Eubank Jr. then made his return, his boxer debut against, I think it's Zarameta, if I pronounce that correctly, who clearly didn't mind having a go himself as well. I think Chris Eubank had to get some stitches or something on his eye. But you know what? We've got to go to after the fight. Conor Benn, with his slick back hair, I don't know what he's doing there, but yeah, jumped in the ring, straight on it, straight for the jugular. I know he's been doing it all week, but when can Conor Benn fight? Look, I'm one of them that wanted to see the fight in the first place. The only thing I was worried about was the disparity of weight between the two of them. But I watched their fathers fight. It's got to the point where, you know, late Sebastian Eubank's got a child that Chris is heavily involved with. Conor Benn has got his own son. And it's getting to the point where I'm thinking, is this going to travel 3 generations? Are we going to get the dads fighting? Are we going to get the sons fighting? And then is it going to go on to the 3rd generation? So
I won't let Raheem fight. He's like my little. I've been babysitting him the other week, so no, he's not going to be fighting.
We're going to play this back in 20 years.
No, he's going to be a brain surgeon instead. That's what we decided. We'll keep him out of there. But I think, look, it's a massive fight. It's been a fight that's been spoken about for many, many years. It's probably been built into one of the biggest fights in British boxing, probably outside of Tyson Fury and Conor Benn, is the reality. Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua, sorry. It's the reality of it. You know, Conor has been literally in the news limelight for the last 2 years. Every interview you do, you've been asked about Conor Benn. Every boxing podcast show. Yeah. No, but like from everyone, Conor Benn is on everyone's lips. You know, and he's probably up there. He's probably a bigger name now than Chris Eubank Jr. is the reality in terms of present day. Obviously, the Eubank name is huge, you know, but Conor has been spoken about so much in the last 2 years that his profile has gone through the roof. You know, and that's what happens when you're spoken about every day on the news. We're very close now to having everything settled. You know, Conor has been through a long process with his legal team, and I think we're nearly there. You know, but we've said that a few times, so I don't want to set a date on it because every time you set on a date on it, people go, "You said this." So I feel like we're close. I feel like the end is very near, and there'll be news very soon. And then that is the fight to make. You know, that is the fight everyone wants to see. It's a fight that's been spoken about for so long now. We remember the build-up when the fight was originally supposed to happen, how big it felt then. You know, it's going to feel 10 times bigger this time around. So hopefully very soon we get some news.
An intrusive, but yet still I feel it's like a necessary question. Is he going to be serving a ban, and is it retrospective? Is it something that's backdated, and then he's free to fight from such and such a day? I know it's intrusive, and I understand you may not be able to answer that, but I'm asking the question.
No, look, I've seen a lot of people have said, you know, in interviews have stated sort of those things. It's not necessarily that's set. That's the process that's ongoing now. And as soon as full disclosure can be made of what the situation is, it will, I'm sure, by UCAD, who are handling it, you know, with the NADP, you know, who handle doping cases for the British Boxing Board of Control. So as soon as that's available, I'm sure there'll be news out there. But it's kind of early doors for people to be saying that, because I have seen people say that. So we'll see how it plays out.
Conor Tudsbury, an amateur fighter that I spoke to, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, when he was potentially looking to go to Tokyo 2024, sorry, Paris 2024. You've signed him. I like that signing. Talk to me about that.
Amazing signing. Excited to get started. Obviously training, you know, working with Sam Jones, training Jamie Moore, the guys. An amazing signing. You know, a massive puncher as well, who's going to move quickly. You know, he wants to move very quickly. Sam Jones said to me, actually, let's get Liam Cameron on it in his 4th fight. That's what he was texting me at the weekend. But yeah, glad to have him on board. And, you know, we're continuously looking to sign new, young, fresh talent. And we're excited to get started with him. You know, he's going to be out early part of next year. Yeah, so lots to look forward to there.
Heavyweights on the. I know you mentioned that you're going to be signing some heavyweights. I'm checking on, Matchroom website, seeing if any pictures have been updated. Any news on any heavyweights? Because Frank, I've said it before. You need them. You need them. You
We're
need them.
talking, yeah, we're looking and talking to a few at the minute, so we'll see how things play out. But there are a few discussions going on.
Okay, listen, I've got to go back to the chat. I do apologise for neglecting it here. Right, Bav has put, when is the Monte Carlo card being announced? Like the schedule of fighters?
Probably start of next week. Everything's set now, but start of next week.
Okay, George Hearn. I don't know if he's any relation to Eddie, but George, one of my regular subscribers. Is what Shalom says true about being blocked and dropped in car parks? Also, why does no one talk about he's affiliated with Mazar Majid, who was convicted of fixing? I don't think it was fights. I think it was cricket.
I don't think he's fixed fights. I mean, look, being dropped in a car park, if that's what you're crying about, then, let's grow up a little bit, to be honest. And his relationship with Maz Majid, I think, I'm sure there's people talking about it, not one for me. It's not my place, really.
Those are questions for Ben Shalom. I have to try and catch up with him. Any confirmed changes that Matchroom want to make to the product next year? We talk about product development. Matchroom is a product. You supply us. We demand it. So, yeah, any changes to the product?
There's lots. There was a meeting with all of our team the other week. We're working through the number of ideas that came up in that. And from 2025 onwards, you'll see a whole new plan. Probably November, December time, we'll come out with a few ideas of what they are, and then just in time for everyone to try and nick them off us.
I like this one from Emma. Frank, would you prefer to host the Benn versus Eubank fight yourselves, or will you give it to His Excellency? I like that question. Hi, Emma.
Look, I think it's about what makes the most sense for the fighters, as always, what makes the most sense commercially. I would love to see that fight in the UK. We've seen Riyadh season fights in the UK in the past, but I think let's see how it plays out. It's early stages. Conor's got to get through his process first, and then we'll go from there. But it's a massive fight, and to do it in the UK as well is something we've spoken about a lot. But at the same time, you've got to make the best commercial decisions, and Riyadh season are doing amazing things for boxing right now. So let's see how things play out.
Got one from Owen. Does Frank have any sort of update on Crocker versus Donovan? It seemed like we were really close to getting that for the end of 2024, but it's went quiet. It's an obvious big headliner event to do.
I've just come off a call about it, actually. The aim is to do that early part of next year. So we're very close to getting all that done as part of the schedule for the early part of next year.
Let's have a look. Axel has said, would Frank be happy if a Matchroom fighter signed for a fight and opponent hid a recent failed test with them before signing? I think he's talking about the Conor Benn, and I don't think it was hidden. Didn't Eubank know about that? I'm sure that came out already, Axel.
Yeah, I think before, Chris was obviously aware before the fight. Look, I think I've been through this because obviously it was a tough situation for me around the whole, with my links across the board. Yeah. Ultimately, we have a boxing board in place whose decision it is, who are aware of everything that goes on, and they're there to be the jurisdiction that looks after the sport. They're the ones who are in charge. They're the ones who are going to make the decision as to what happens with the fight. So it's for them to decide. So I've been through that a lot, and that's that is the position. We've been down those roads with a number of different things, and the board have made that decision. So it's on them as the jurisdiction.
Yeah. Matty Lawless is checking if you want a cup of tea. I take it that's my cue to get off the live with you. I'm just going to cover.
I've got 5-10 more minutes, but Matt, okay. Matt, I'd like a Gale's coffee, so we'll go down there in a bit.
Oh, that's nice. I'm going to try and get down to your head office and do a proper sit down with you. You can give me a tour of Matchroom. I could do like a little mini documentary.
Let's do it like the old days.
Yeah, I'd like that. Right, Bava said, is the Matchroom and Buatsi court case being resolved? And that is a good question, because even this week, Buatsi, there was like a plethora of rumours about Buatsi going to Queensbury. And then I atted both Buatsi and Queensbury, said, hey, what's going on? And then Buatsi put up a lovely picture with him and Ben Shalom to say, no, the loyalty's here. I'm staying where I am. And I posted that as well. That quelled that question. But how are you getting on with that? Is that court case still ongoing?
Look, as with all these legal matters, confidential things ongoing, I let people who are much smarter than me deal with these things. I'll get on with focusing where the business moves forward to, but nothing I can really go into.
Yeah, and this is a good point from Maka, actually. Thanks for reminding me, Maka. I saw an interview where Ben Shalom said they were looking into Wardley's gloves. Surely this was done before the fight. He was questioning how the indentation on Fraser's head happened.
Look, I think I've heard a few things about that, what Ben's been saying. Obviously that's something you deal with in a rules meeting before the fight. You review, look at the gloves and make sure you're happy with them. The British Boxing Board of Control obviously oversee the events in Saudi Arabia. They make sure they're happy and the gloves are approved. I wouldn't read too much into it. He got hit with a massive shot. That's heavyweight boxing. That's the sport of boxing. And, I think it's Ben probably being a bit immature, to be honest, with comments like that after the fights happened.
Yeah, I mean, I think somebody's mentioned Fly custom gloves previously. It's not the first time that I've heard it mentioned. So it's ironic that it's come up again with this fight. But, Fraser's on the mend and Fabio gets to move on. I doubt if he'll keep the belt, but obviously that's entirely up to him. We've got to speak about Regis Prograis, Jack Catterall next week. I apologize, I didn't get to the workout yesterday, but I'll be there for fight week. I'm looking forward to that. Talk to us about that fight, because we've had postponements for injuries. That card has been fragmented, put back together, postponed.
Yeah, look, we've had a tough run over the last few months of injuries, postponements, cancellations, etc. Boxing, that's the sport we're in. Look, Jack Catterall coming off the back of that tremendous win against Josh Taylor in Leeds, an unbelievable night there. Felt like an old school British boxing night. Regis Prograis, he's coming out the back of the Devin Haney fight. It's another one where he got beat by Devin Haney probably up there in the pound for pound list in terms of what he's done in the sport in such a short space of time at such a young age. People go, "Oh, Regis, he's finished now." And it's like he's coming off the back of a huge pay-per-view night against Devin Haney. He's going to want to prove himself. This is his moment. Whoever comes out of this really puts themselves in a position to get a 140 world title shot after this. So it's a huge fight for both of them. The first big night at the Clarke Arena as well. First fight night you got there. You got Man City playing earlier in the day, finishes at 5 o'clock. Everyone coming in from the game. So we'll try and go to the game early and then go across to the fights. So excited for it. Pat McCormack's back as well. He's had a frustrating period out of the ring, but I'm delighted to see him finally back in the ring because it's been such a long time coming now. Campbell Hatton jumping straight back in there against Flynn. Respect him because a lot of people wouldn't have done that. We speak about this in the past. A lot of people, I'll have a warm-up fight, I'll have a 6-rounder, I'll have an 8-rounder. He's going straight back in there in a real fight. So that's great to see as well. So excited for next Saturday. Big night in Manchester. Yes, it's going to be a good one.
Sandy Ryan, then finally, before I go, Sandy Ryan, obviously the fight that she had with Michaela Mayer. We had, paint, posters. We had all sorts of stuff. I know when I spoke to Eddie last time, he said that obviously legals were getting involved. They were looking into CCTV, all sorts, cars, a car that was involved, someone running out of it, etc. I understand that that's a process and that's going on. I'm guessing that if we'd known anything about it, we'd hear that. However, Sandy Ryan and Michaela Mayer on a Riyadh season card. I know that you've baptized the card with the female now. Maybe not the best words for it, but you know what I mean, with Sky Nicholson and Raven Chapman, a world title fight. I think this would be an exciting fight to see with those two girls on a Riyadh season card, and it's neutral.
Yeah. Look, it's an ongoing matter that the NYPD are dealing with. I was there at the time when it all happened. It happened very quickly. It was quite shocking, really. You don't really expect it.
No.
It's a massive rematch. It's a fight. It's a rematch that I believe should happen as well. I don't think it was fair what Sandy went through before that. People saying she should have pulled out. I mean, we're in a sport where she's trained for 10 weeks and she doesn't get paid if she fights. That's the reality of it. This is her livelihood, this is her job. And it's very easy for people to say she shouldn't have fought. But, but also she wasn't in the best frame of mind after that. How could you be? It's all quite shocking, really. And yeah, that's ongoing. It's a massive rematch. It's a massive rematch. I believe it will happen. I hope the WBO as well will step in, because I believe that Sandy, that was the defending champion going in there, I believe she deserves another shot. So, but I think that's a fight we can make with Top Rank. I think it's a much bigger fight. The viewing figures were huge as well that Top Rank came out with on ESPN.
Yeah.
So, I do believe that's a fight that can be made, and an even bigger fight this time round.
Neutral territory, Frank?
Possibly, yeah. I don't think the scorecards necessarily were bad. I've got to be honest. I thought it was a close fight, but I think sometimes at points Sandy was fighting with frustration because of the situation, and understandably so. So, I don't think it's about not going to the US, but if it's a Riyadh season fight, that'd be great as well. But, I just want to see the fight happen wherever it is.
Yeah, awesome. Listen, guys, thank you ever so much for all of your time. Frank, thank you so much for being here. And I'm going to leave it with a positive on the screen. When Eddie retires Matchroom, left in good hands with Frank Smith.
Thank you, Matt.
You like that? That's a positive.
The first person who's ever said that. Cheers, mate.
Well, it's on the screen. Frank,
Yeah.
I shall see you next week then. But thanks once again for your time.
No problem. See you in Manchester.
See you in Manchester. Au revoir.
People say I'm toxic, and honestly, I don't care.